Hello English 426. Today I will be doing my digital response on the game Journey. I will first talk about what I think the game was like, how it was to play, and then what I think it would be like to implement this game in a classroom setting. So first of all, I would just like to start by saying I don't have very much experience with playing video games. I do own a Wii, but I only ever really played Mario Kart on it, so I'm not much of a gamer. I do have a little bit of experience though with having, contact with video games in school. In middle school, actually, we were able to purchase Rock Band to keep in the classroom. This was kept in our chorus room, and if kids were behaving well or if they did well on a quiz or a test, students were able to sign up and play this game, which I thought was, really cool at the time, actually, to think that we could implement video games in a high school setting or middle school setting, because, prior to that, I had never really had a video game be in the school before. So that's just kind of my experience with gaming. But to talk a little bit about the game Journey specifically, I really enjoyed the game, actually. I thought it was visually stunning. I really liked the music of the game. I thought it was rather peaceful to play. The premise of the game is kind of just making your way through these different worlds, and that's kind of it. With that being said, I'm still a little confused on what the purpose of the game is. I think that's just because I don't have very much experience with gaming myself. But, it seems like you kind of just make your way through these levels. You can learn how to fly, and it's kind of magical in that way. It's a cool game, but I fear that if I were to implement this specific game in my classroom, that I wouldn't really know what to talk about with my students. I thought it was a cool game. It has, maybe more benefits than Mario Kart, which is what I'm familiar with. But I don't know what we would really do with it as a text. The fact that we don't really know anything about this main character, and the fact that you don't really come across other characters in the game, it's kind of lacking for me in that way. But I do think implementing, a game in the classroom could be really, really beneficial, actually. I did some research and I found 2 articles that talk about, using video games in schools. This one here is rather recent, actually. It's from November of 2016. It talks about using games for serious learning in high school. And, within the article, they're talking about how you can use video games just as you would use a book or a movie, which I think is a really valid point. In this specific article, they are analyzing the best games that you should use in a high school setting if you want to have them play video games. And I thought it was quite interesting because here they actually talk about Life is Strange. And I saw that and I thought, wait, that sounds oddly familiar. So then I took a look at Shannon's syllabus right here. And if you scroll all the way down to the different texts we use, one of the games that we have the option to play is actually Life is Strange. So I was excited to look at that video game before, but now I'm even more excited. So I think that's great that they included it in this article. But again, this article is just kind of talking about the benefits of using video games, different games that you can use, and how in reality video games really are a text available to us just as a book or a movie might. Another article that I took a look at is talking about, again, high school teachers make gaming academic. This article is a little bit older. It's from 2011. But I think something that this article points out that's very interesting and different from the previous article is that it talks about, how parents are working to get their children to stop playing video games at home, but now teachers are trying to implement them in school. So that wasn't really something I had thought about, that maybe parents would disagree with using video games in school. But with that being said, we're not having them play Mario Kart. They're not going to be playing Call of Duty. The games that we would talk about, we would pick very carefully, just how we pick our books carefully. So I think that's something to note. But again, I thought it was interesting, talking about how teachers today really are trying to use technology in the classroom, whether that be video games or cell phones. We do live in the 21st century, and it's, in my opinion, not the most absurd thing to want to use technology in your classroom. But again, this article did point out something important that I hadn't really thought about before, in that, parents might disagree with using the game in school. If they're worried that their child is sitting in front of the television too much at home, they might worry that, oh no, now they're going to school where I thought they were going to be reading books and now they're playing video games. So I think, just choosing the right game and, telling the parents about your intentions could be something worthwhile. So one concern that I have with, requiring my students to play video games is the time aspect of it. I think what we have with Shannon is a really great opportunity. We have a whole room set up for us that we can sign up with her and go play this game. We didn't have to buy anything, and that's really great for us. But thinking about it in a high school setting, if I wanted to purchase a console, I could easily do that. Purchase this game, I can set it up, I can stay after school however many days a week so that my students could have the opportunity to play this game, or at least watch someone else play this game. But I worry that, what about the students who can't stay after school? I don't know how realistic it would be to ask my students to play this game. If they, for instance, don't already own their own console, playing it in my classroom would be their only chance to really play it. But with that being said, if a student can't stay after school for, whatever reason, say they have work or they're on a sports team, if they can't stay after school to play the game, I don't really think it's fair of me to request that they then have to buy this game and, potentially buy a console to play the game either. So I think I'm just concerned about how realistic it would be to actually get my students to play this game. Furthermore, I guess my only other concern is really just, what would I do with this game? Specifically with Journey, like I said before, I think it's a cool game. It's something that I'm not really, I haven't really had exposure with. But again, I guess I'm a little bit confused on what we would physically do with the game in the classroom. I don't know what we would talk about. I think, it's a cool game. Again, it's a story type game, so you kind of just make your way through the game and then that's it. But I don't really know what we would talk about in the classroom. Perhaps this is just not really the best text to use for that purpose. Maybe Life is Strange will be better when we play that in a few weeks. But I think I'm just a little lost on how I would actually incorporate this game into my classroom. But again, I think students would love the opportunity to get to play video games. Again, I didn't really get to do it in high school. We had Rock Band in middle school and that was it. So I think, really modernizing our classroom and exposing our students to all different types of texts is something, really important to consider. Again, before coming to Shannon's class, I had never really played a video game in school before. I had never even really read a graphic novel or a comic book. So I think, Shannon has really opened our minds up to the different texts that we can actually use in schools. It doesn't have to be, those typical old classic novels that we're all used to. So I really, really like the idea of using video games in the classroom. I think I'm only hesitant because I myself am not a gamer, and I would be a little insecure about maybe which game to pick, and then after having my students play the game, assuming that that goes over well, I would be a little bit worried on then how to have a class discussion and, how to really integrate this game into my classroom. So, I really liked this game. I thought it was interesting. It was different than anything I had previously had exposure with. But again, I think as a teacher, I would be a little hesitant to maybe use this specific game. But that's all I have for you guys today. Thanks for watching.